The Doctor, a traveler through space and time in the show Doctor Who, has experienced so much over the span of the show so far, but the 14th Doctor, going through bi-generation instead of the classic regeneration, was brushing on a brand new territory for the character, and the show as a whole. So here's a spoiler warning for Doctor Who. Personally, I encourage you to go watch the show and then come back, and I'll give you a moment to do so. Alright, to put it simply for those who don't want to watch 62 years worth of content to understand, regeneration is a mechanic in the show where a Time Lord, the Doctor's race, can utilize when they're nearing death. It's a way for the Time Lord to cheat death and heal their body. However, they can only do so up to 12 times, and doing so completely changes the character's face and personality as well. Out of universe, it's a way to swap out the main actor portraying the Doctor every few years and keep the show fresh. There's many reasons why Doctor Who is the longest running sci-fi show on TV, and regeneration is certainly one of those reasons. However, returning showrunner and current showrunner Russell T Davies introduced bi-generation this most recent time around, where instead of the Doctor completely changing, this time he's split in half. So now there's two Doctors in the present day. David Tennant's 14th Doctor sort of retired with his best friend from the 10th Doctor days, while Ncuti Gatwa took over the mantle as the current Doctor. But with massive world and sometimes universe-shattering catastrophes happening at the end of every season, the fans are left wondering what happened to the 14th Doctor. He's still the Doctor, so it's out of character for him to be all like, oh, there's another Doctor now, it's not my problem anymore, he'll figure it out. But we haven't seen the 14th Doctor since his bi-generation episode. The TARDIS was also duplicated, so he has a method to intervene. So what happened to him? Will we see him again? I've seen some theories floating around and want to talk about some of my favorites today. First theory, he becomes the Valeyard. The Valeyard was a character first introduced in the 1986 season-long story, The Trial of a Time Lord, where he is revealed to be an amalgamation of the Doctor's darkest qualities, and is a regeneration somewhere between his 12th and final incarnations. Now, when this aired, all Time Lords had 12 regenerations, 13 total lives, but things have changed a bit since then. The Doctor gained a new regeneration cycle in the time of the Doctor, and there's the whole Timeless Child retcon, more on that later. The inclusion of the War Doctor and 10's fake-out Meta-Crisis regeneration bumps the 10th Doctor's second regeneration from Journey's End to the End of Time as the 12th incarnation, technically. So in current canon, the Valeyard fits in between the Doctor's regeneration in the End of Time and his last ever regeneration, whenever that may be. So the 14th Doctor is within that umbrella. When 10 was on his own, he went all Time Lord victorious and got a big ego, so we know what this Doctor is capable of. And here's a thought. What if more than just the Doctor's physical person split during his bi-generation? Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor is definitely more emotional than anything we've seen before. Yes, we've seen the Doctor cry in the past, but this current Doctor sheds tears in almost every episode he's in. So if this Doctor got the more emotional and kind aspects of the character during the split, maybe the 14th Doctor got more of the negative and egocentric bits. Plus, seeing the Doctor as the big bad of this era would be pretty cool. I love that sort of twist. Next theory, he could become the Curator. Only appearing in the 50th anniversary special, The Day of the Doctor, the Curator is, shockingly, a curator of the museum where a good chunk of the special takes place. He shows up at the end to talk to Matt Smith's 11th Doctor, where we see that he is played by the great Tom Baker, the beloved 4th Doctor himself. He implies in their brief chat that he is actually a future incarnation of the Doctor who decided to revisit an old face and retire.
I never forget a face.
I know you don't. And in years to come, you might find yourself revisiting a few, but just the old favorites.
And that's exactly what we see with Tennant's 14th Doctor now. He's revisiting an old face and retiring. Granted, it's heavily implied that the Doctor regenerated into David Tennant again as a form of stress and needing to deal with his lingering PTSD, but now the Doctor knows he can revisit old faces. So maybe he decides to become the Curator, eventually. Finally, and this is the one I'm hoping for the most, sticking to the 4th Doctor connection, Tennant's 14th Doctor could become the Watcher. The Watcher was a classic Who entity that appeared alongside the 4th Doctor. Silent except for psychic communications, the Watcher did more than just watch. Over the course of the episode Logopolis, the Watcher transports companions to safety, flies the TARDIS, and is eventually revealed to be the Doctor himself.
He was the Doctor all the time.
The Watcher merges with the 4th Doctor, aiding him in his regeneration into the 5th. That's about all we know of him, though. The Doctor assumes the Watcher is his next incarnation, but that's about it. The Watcher shows up in some novels and magazines, but those are not considered canon. Now, since we don't have much info, this theory is more speculation, just my thoughts, you know? So perhaps, in Ncudi's final episode, Tennant comes back. I know Russell T Davies has said that there are no plans for Tennant to come back currently, but let's be real, he plans his arcs ahead and would not spoil something like that. So Tennant comes back, helps Ncudi's Doctor until his 15th Doctor gets mortally wounded and needs to regenerate. Since both of these Doctors are here due to bigeneration, they're already connected in a way that we've never seen before, so it would make sense for them both to be present for this. Perhaps Tennant's Doctor is able to tap into some power or something that prepares Ncudi's Doctor for regeneration, bridging the split characters back together but leaving Tennant's Doctor still physically intact, you know? Tennant's Doctor levels up to become the Watcher, this new entity, but he's seen it before just from the Doctor's perspective. Once Tennant realizes who he is now, he quotes his 4th incarnation saying,
It's the end. But the moment has been prepared for.
and blips away to aid that incarnation, thus coming full circle. We've already seen a connection to the 4th Doctor through Sutekh in last season's finale, and the fact that the Doctor watched actual footage from the 4th Doctor's story. And Tennant has a personal connection to Peter Davison, the 5th Doctor, as well. David Tennant is married to his daughter, Georgia, and has starred in a short Doctor Who special with Davison. So with the connections to both Doctors, I feel it just makes sense. Now that's all the theories I have for today, but I promised we'd talk about the Timeless Child dilemma, so these are my thoughts on that. Unpopular opinion, I do not think it's that bad. Now don't get me wrong, I certainly was not on board with it originally. Like, at first I didn't see a problem, but the more I thought about it after the reveal, the more problems I found with it, and I know many people still don't like it. For those that do not know, the Timeless Child plot happened at the end of Chris Chibnall's run as showrunner during Jodie Whittaker's era. The Timeless Child plot basically rewrote the character's backstory and entire canon as we knew it, which was very bold of him to do so. It also did not help that the writing during the time was pretty bad and COVID was affecting production as well. So basically, the Doctor finds out that instead of being a Time Lord and born on Gallifrey, she actually came through a random wormhole landing on Gallifrey and was taken in by this lady Tecteun. Once discovering the Doctor could regenerate, something nobody knew was even possible, Tecteun tortured the Doctor to unlock the secrets within and eventually did. The Gallifreyans were able to collect and harness this power, giving themselves the power to regenerate and become Time Lords. They had the Doctor work with his group known as Division at some point in her past, which we don't know much about, and after a while they wiped the Doctor's memory. Either that is when we pick up with William Hartnell's first Doctor, or this happens between Patrick Troughton's second regeneration and Jon Pertwee's third Doctor, since that regeneration happened off-screen and the Time Lords forced that regeneration to happen. Oh, and the Doctor now has an unlimited number of regenerations. My main problem was that the Doctor wasn't special. He was just some guy that decided to travel the universe and help those that needed it. He could be anyone, because all it really takes is a good heart to do what's right. Never be cruel, never be cowardly. Growing up and watching the show, I saw parts of myself in the Doctor. Like, I'd like to think I'm a good person, I'm happy to help whenever I can. I looked up to him as a role model, someone I could strive to be one day. And then the Timeless Child plot happened, and butchered the Doctor into a character that was just born special. Yes, they still chose to be good, but the Doctor is now this basically godlike being that can live forever. They no longer can just be anyone, because they don't have that aspect the viewers can relate to the most. Just being normal. Being just some guy that tries their best and will one day die, so they make the most of every situation. That aspect that I connected to so many years ago is now gone. And boy, that hurt. But that also damages any past high stakes the character had, most notably the 11th Doctor's last stand in the time of the Doctor. In the episode, the 11th Doctor realizes that, with the inclusion of the War Doctor and 10's Meta-Crisis Doctor, he's actually on his final regeneration. He and companion Clara find a town on the planet previously established as Trenzalore, the planet where the Doctor is buried. They find a crack in space and time which has been showing up throughout 11's run, and discover that it's the Time Lords broadcasting through trying to return to this dimension after the events of the Day of the Doctor. The problem, though, is that every enemy the Doctor has ever faced is currently in orbit trying to prevent the Time Lords' return, because if they return, Time War II Electric Boogaloo will begin. So what does the Doctor do? He hunkers down in the town and defends it and its people. He sends Clara back home and grows old over hundreds of years just to save as many people as he can. He knows that this is his last life. He knows that this is where he's destined to die, and yet he faces death head on. He doesn't know if those he saves will live on for years, weeks, or just days to come, and yet he still stays, because he's the Doctor. This mirrors Capaldi's second-to-last story, The Doctor Falls, as well, where the Doctor is again put in a similar situation. He knows he's probably not surviving the ordeal, he is doing all he can to protect the innocent. They may only be able to survive a few more days, but even that is better than dying today. When 11 is old, dying of old age, the Daleks are all that remain. The TARDIS returns with Clara, who, from her perspective, was only gone for a few minutes, and Clara, in a last-ditch effort to save the Doctor, speaks to the Time Lords through the crack. The Doctor could have sealed that crack ages ago, but couldn't bring himself to do it. Clara begs the Time Lords to help the Doctor, and they do. A larger crack rips open in the sky, and the Time Lords bless the Doctor with a whole new regeneration cycle. The Doctor uses the energy to destroy the remaining Daleks and finally save the town. But, with the Timeless Child plot, it makes this beautiful scene and entire episode kinda moot. And now, the Doctor didn't know the truth at the time, but looking back, don't you think he would have figured out the truth when he thinks he's about to die and starts regenerating again? Don't you think if the Time Lords knew the truth about the Doctor, they wouldn't have granted him a regeneration cycle to begin with? Unless maybe they were keeping up the ruse, trying keeping the secret there? Or maybe just none of the Time Lords that are currently around remember the truth? It opens a lot of unnecessary questions. However, here's where I think the show, and specifically Russell T Davies, saved the lore and plot. In Tennant's 60th anniversary special, The Giggle, it's established that the interdimensional being, the Celestial Toymaker, is responsible for the change of lore. Last seen in the first Doctor serial of the same name, the Celestial Toymaker is a being powerful enough to create a pocket universe as his home. He's basically a trickster deity, baiting travelers into his realm where he challenges them to games that are rigged in his favor. The first Doctor defeats him, and the Toymaker gets banished to the ether until Tennant's 14th Doctor invokes a superstition at the furthest point in the universe that he's ever been to, which allows the Toymaker to return. The Toymaker then makes a jigsaw out of the Doctor's past, quote-unquote. So with this knowledge, we can look at the Timeless Child plot as being done by the Toymaker, therefore everything that happened up until Jodie's era we can look at as original canon, and once we hit Jodie's era, the canon changes. At least, that's how I'm choosing to look at it, to make all the past achievements special still, you know? But leave your thoughts and theories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.